Look at our special surprise. Isn't that amazing? I literally just saw them 2 seconds before Lou sent you across to us. Hi, babies. That is so cool. Good morning, my name is Jamie, and this morning Brian is on camera with me. Brian, how nice is it to see new babies?
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, this is such a special thing. Hello. Hello, you clever girl. I'm just keeping a little bit of distance for now. I don't want them to go racing back into the den. Look at you. Look at you. Oh, sorry. I'll try and refocus myself in a moment, but my goodness gracious. It has been so long since I saw a little hyena of this age, when they're still black and don't have spots. Oh, I'm so chuffed. Hi, guys. Yes, is that your mummy's ear? Oh, this is so exciting for our new viewers. I cannot wait for you to spend a bit more time with these hyena cubs. It is such a joy, and as they get older, they get braver and braver, and then they come up to say hello to us, and then we have to have eyes in the back of our heads, and so does the camera operator, because otherwise they chew your tires. Yes, I'm looking at you, Mischief. Mounting Mum, climbing up onto her back. Oh, so chuffed. Finally. Oh, Brian? It paid off. All the talking about there being a hyena den and the fact that we were desperate to see them. Yay! That is so lovely. Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. I was just listening to Brent call it in. Hi! Look at your ears! One day you're going to have to grow into those ears. Oh! Look at those little bellies. Now, Miss Sky, you say, is this Gwen? Miss Sky, no, I don't think so. It's not at all. I don't think so. I know it's not Gwen. This is another hyena. If you have a look at this one's ears, Gwen has got particularly tattered ears. She's pockmarked with scars all over her face. This is quite a pristine hyena. Is this I assume is ribbon. I'm not 100% sure. It's a little bit tricky for me to tell in the dark without any comparisons, and having not seen a proper hyena sighting in over 9 months, apart from Gwen. And I'm pretty sure this is ribbon. But I'm so happy. It's definitely not Corky, and it's definitely not Madam. Oh, oh, what's up? What's up? You can see she's alert. The lovely thing as well about a hyena den is that, of course, all of the rest of the clan will come and visit. It's kind of treated like a halfway house where they pop in every now and again to come and visit the mothers, and you get a really lovely idea of the clan dynamics. The males come to visit, the females come to visit. You get an idea of where the cubs stand by watching their mother's behavior and by watching their behavior. Mom. Poor put upon Mom. All right, you two. Veronica, you want to know how old they are before they start getting their spots. From watching these hyenas at the den site, we start to see the spots coming through at about 3 or so months. And these hyenas, I would guess at and say they're already close to a month old. Look at that! Look at you balancing like that. Maybe about 3 weeks or so, but I think a little bit older. I think about close to a month. It takes them a lot longer than we realize for them to first poke their heads out of the den. And they usually do that at around about 10 days. Of course, hyena cubs born with fully erupted teeth, so they're already ready to bite and chew when they are born. And that whole birthing process is a very difficult experience for the mother, and she's quite young. I would suggest, just by looking at her and how intact she is. Look at these two loving their mother. So this might even be her first litter, in which case she's done very, very well for both cubs to survive, because due to the nature of female anatomy in spotted hyenas, they actually... Oh, look how scarred and scratched up this cub is already. And that's inflicted by the other one. There you go, that's how. My goodness, they look like those little sphinx cats. Those little hairless cats. What was I talking about? Oh yes, due to the anatomy of the female, the birthing process is very complicated. Our Djumas, as I said a little earlier, I reckon they're about 3 weeks old to about a month. So I don't know whether she's moved them from another den. Perhaps they had a den site around Treehouse Dam. Look how brave they are. They're a little bit too bold and inquisitive to be much younger than that. Then they only really start to poke their heads out when they're around about 7 to 10 days old. And they're much, much tinier than this. So I would guess at around a month or so. Oh, you're getting so brave. Shall we risk a reposition, Brian? Shall we try it? I want them to be closer to their mum when we switch our engine on. I don't want it to be as they're exploring, because that's going to be negative reinforcement of that whole process. But as long as they see mum is relaxed and calm, then they'll be able to judge their behavior from her. Here we go. Okay, well, we've got an okay view for now. Let's settle for this for now. Now, Katie, this is the average size of a hyena litter. They don't have more than 2, mainly due, in fact, to, well, first of all, limited by the number of nipples they have, but also due to that birthing process. So it's very common for first-time mothers for the first or the second cub to actually get stuck and to die during the birth, and that's because, obviously, the spotted hyena is one of the few mammals with a fused urinary and vaginal tract. So they urinate and give birth and mate through exactly the same thing, which is an extended, almost phallic-like organ. In fact, very phallic-like organ. So it's a tricky process for them. Now, they don't have more than 2. Sometimes, if you have 2 hyena cubs born of the same sex, there is a chance that one will kill the other. So, for example, with Pretty's cub, November, there's only 1. I'm so happy, I'm almost speechless. Don't forget to send through your questions, #SafariLive on Twitter. All those weeks and weeks of hard work and walking the same place and driving the same place, and they've wound up at the Philemon's Cutline Den. I don't believe it, Brian. After all we tried to do, all that searching. Yes, I'm looking at you, girl. Your babies are beautiful, but you did lead us on rather a wild goose chase. Bonk. Head down. Exhausted. Now, Zaz, you want to know if hyenas always leave the clan to have their babies. No, not necessarily at all. I would guess and say that there is a connection between their rank and whether or not they will keep their babies in the same den as other hyenas. But even then you can't draw exact conclusions. So what will often happen is that females will have babies at the same time, and they'll share a den. So we've seen litters from 3 different females before at one den site, all of 3 different ages, but quite close together in age. Whereas I would suggest that Gwen would be unlikely to bring her cubs to this den. I've changed my mind about the possibility of her cubs being here. I suppose it is a possibility, but just because they're so much bigger, they're going to be rowdy and rambunctious, and Gwen is a low-ranking hyena. So if her cubs hurt the cubs of a higher-ranking hyena, the higher-ranking hyena is going to turn around and discipline them, and she won't be able to do anything to stop it. And that's often, it's theorized by some biologists that is actually how quite a few hyena cubs are killed, aunt-aside, by being killed by a higher-ranking member of the clan, an adult member. Could you get a more contented scene? Oh, I don't envy her. Imagine those teeth, Brian. I bet you they chew like little monsters. Yay! Fluff balls! Sorry everybody, I'm just listening to the updates from Cheetah Plains, so I'm just listening with half an ear to what's going on that side. And we have a game drive radio for our new viewers that connects all of us and allows us to share where all of the animals are. Now, Brendan, you want to know what the survival rate is? Pretty good, actually. I would say that in this area, and having observed, because remember survival rates will differ from area to area, having observed the various cubs growing up over the last 2 years, or nearly 2 years, I would say that the survival rate in this particular area is not bad at all. As far as we know, both January twins, both December twins, and November have all survived to sub-adult stage, and it helps to have the protection of a den site, and it helps to have the protection of a clan to ensure the survival. And I suspect, look, it's up for debate, it's really speculation, I suspect the reason our hyenas disappeared is because they were clever. They decided that for that 8 months of that year, they didn't want to be around where the Nkuhumas were raising their cubs, because the biggest threat to a hyena cub is a lion. And not too long ago, the lions did actually kill, we don't know which hyena, unfortunately. It was outside of our Traverse area, but they did manage to kill a sub-adult spotted hyena. So happy. This is the best way to start a day ever. James is going to be so chuffed. We'll have to pass the message on to him as soon as we possibly can. He's been as invested as myself and the other presenters in searching for them. We're not going to go anywhere just yet, but let's go and get an update from Brent to see if his morning is as special as ours. The latest little additions to Djuma have settled for now and have managed to find their spot and suckling away. Our hyena milk, spotted hyena milk, is one of the richest of all of the mammal milks out here. So they are getting a really good, thorough and balanced start to life. Sound like one of those powdered milk adverts. All the vitamins and fat that they need to grow, and they do grow relatively quickly. And it's going to be fascinating to watch these two as they start to grow up, as we start to get an idea of male, female, where they fall into the ranking system of our spotted hyenas. Oh, I just want to go tuck in that tail. So cute. Sorry, it's quite hard not to get a little bit sappy around new hyena cubs. You definitely wouldn't want to go and cuddle one, though. That I can tell you. First of all, they're quite smelly, and second of all, even at that age, I'm pretty certain they could administer a really powerful bite. They'd probably, even at this age, be able to take off your finger. Now, I think that is definitely something to be avoided. Oh, this is going to be so exciting. I don't know if the the VR guys realize, but they should actually be dancing for joy on the back of Brent's vehicle and wherever else they happen to be. And the reason that I say that is because of all of the animals. Hyenas, particularly young hyenas, tend to be the most curious around the vehicles. So they'll come right up to that VR rig. And I think, Brian, was it with you? We got the fight on VR, and then we had, oh no, it was with VM, that I had the other sighting where they were all wandering around underneath the VR in the front of the vehicle and so on. And it's an interesting thing that doesn't carry over into adult behavior. So whilst the adults are still curious and intelligent, they don't mess with the vehicles in the same way. So they don't come up and chew on your tires or anything like that once they're an adult, which is why, well, obviously we don't let them chew on the tires. If we realize that it's happening, we'll give the car a gentle tap just to get them to create some space between us. They shouldn't really be doing that. My highlight was once I was turned around to talk to somebody behind me long ago, back in a vehicle that had side mirrors, which, as you can imagine, with us is quite a bad idea. Imagine if these vehicles had side mirrors. Well, they wouldn't. They wouldn't anymore, if we're completely honest. But the next thing I heard this doof and a crunch, and I looked around, and this hyena was busy chewing on my side mirror. That was taking things a bit far, so I bopped it on the head. Definitely not something you should try at home. Not that I think many people would have the opportunity. I never did it again. But they grow out of that behavior. And after that, spotted hyena won't cause that sort of nonsense. They will if you leave something like an aeroplane parked on a tarmac overnight without protecting the tires. Hyenas love to chew on rubber. It's one of their favorite things. And many a pilot has returned to find that all of a sudden their tires have been shredded by the jaws of a hyena. Oh, look at that. Sun kissing the tops of the trees. Baby hyenas. It doesn't get better. And one very, very sleepy mum who has provided us with these special bundles of teeth. I was going to call them bundles of joy. Bundles of teeth. Oh, Michael, you want to know if we're able to sex the cubs at this age. Michael, the easiest way will be to watch their behavior, and then we can start to guess. But as Ribbon has taught us, it's never a completely foolproof sort of process unless you actually can closely examine the hyenas, or, as with Ribbon, you have a chance to see them suckling cubs or mating. So it is a tricky thing to do, and it's especially hard when they are this age. So I mentioned earlier that female hyenas have a pseudo-penis. It's actually essentially a lengthened, modified clitoris that is, in essence, when they're this age especially, essentially the same. So there are minute differences that you can try and look for in terms of the ending, with the males having a slightly different ending to that particular, to their genitalia than the females. But it's really tricky. And of course their testicles haven't descended. And even with testicles, it's also tricky because the female's teats are positioned in that same area and the labia are extended so that it looks like testicles or a scrotum. So it is really tricky to do, sex a hyena, especially at this age. But we can start to make assumptions while we watch them with their behavior, see if one is slightly more dominant than the other, or not actually slightly, a lot more dominant than the other, and that will suggest to us that it is a female. But as Ribbons taught us, you've got to be a bit careful. It's not foolproof unless you've actually got them under anesthetic and you're closely examining them. I'm excited to see the rest of the clan coming by to visit as well. Must be nearly time for Madam to have cubs, and Pretty, and Corky. The gang's all together again, Brian. Or hopefully the gang's going to all be together again. These cubs are going to bring us so much joy. Personal bias, I hope they move to the Mvubu Road den. Not now, we've just found them. Let's keep it this way for now. But that Mvubu Road den is just such a perfect setup. And Philemon's Cutline den used to be. But since it's been abandoned for so long, the trees have been knocked over and it's just a little bit more difficult. Now, Soraya, you want to know at what age are the hyena cubs weaned? Oh, sorry, not weaned, start eating meat. So they'll start eating meat at around about just over 6 months. There is an interesting thing about hyena cubs being weaned and the ranking of the mothers. And that's information that's come through from a study that's been done. So the hyena cubs of high-ranking females, in general, we've got to be careful because not every study is applicable to this area. Not everything is applicable to these hyenas. They don't read the studies that were done, so they don't know what they're meant to be doing. In general, the spotted hyenas of high-ranking females... Spotted hyena cubs of high-ranking females will start to eat meat a little bit sooner, but they will wean a bit later, and that's because their mothers have access to the best pickings of a meal, so they are able to produce milk for longer, so they're able to continue to lactate for longer and feed their cubs. However, the reason that the cubs start to eat meat earlier is because the higher-ranking females will often bring food back to the den site, where generally lower-ranking hyenas won't. That, by the way, I'm pretty sure underneath its tail, I'm pretty sure that's its anal gland, which of course is what puts hyenas closer to the sort of the mustelid and herpestidae families, the badgers and the civets and the genets, rather than close to dog families or cat families, for example. I'm so chuffed I'm not going anywhere. But while I sit here patiently to wait to see if these hyena cubs decide to stir after their meal, Taylor's up along with the sun. Let's go and have a look. Hopefully we managed to fill your day with several apex predators this morning, but for now we've got some very tiny ones. Oh, big yawn. You can see clearly when she yawns like that she's a young hyena. Those teeth are in perfect condition still. Now, little one, are you itchy? I'm not surprised. Living in that den site with all those flies. That's of course why hyenas... Mom, I don't want a bath. That's why spotted hyena cubs get moved on a regular basis, just to prevent that build-up of parasites around the den. They're not clean animals, and there's a certain scent that accompanies a regularly accessed hyena den. It smells a little bit like a combination between wet dog and rotting meat, I think is probably... It's a smell that you come to love. It's not an instinctive, nice smell. Oh. And welcome and good morning to Claire. Claire, no, hyenas don't, well, adult hyenas don't excavate the den. So what they'll do is they'll take over from an already utilized hole in a termite mound, something that might have been dug by an aardvark. Oh, so brave. Yeah, it was a big, wide, scary world out there. Oh, shame, poor mom. She just wants a nap. She keeps getting thumped by little feet. So the adults won't excavate. They'll have their cubs, and then the cubs themselves actually do the excavating. So this den site, when I last visited it on bushwalk, had completely collapsed inside. And what you'll find now is that these little cubs will have excavated little nooks and crannies that they can crawl into that will keep them safe from the larger predators that won't be able to follow them into the den. And it's generally lions that are the biggest risk to a hyena den like this, particularly a male lion, and particularly a young male lion. They tend to invest more energy in chasing other predators and trying to catch and kill them. Although all lions will do it, all predators will do it, they would equally return the favor if they could. But the little cubs will excavate themselves, and the hyena adults, the mothers, will never be able to go right into the den. So they can go in a little bit, as we saw with Gwen. I'm the king of the castle. Look at it. But they won't be able to go where the cubs go, which is why when we see them go and call the cubs, they have to stand at the entrance and give off this sort of low woo, woo, woo sound to call the cubs out. Look at that balance. I'm super impressed. Oh, we appear to have a visitor. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Oh, marvellous. It's Aubrey. They're going to be so chuffed. Look, cubs. Look who's coming to say hello to you. You're very popular. Yes, you are. Alright, Aubrey and I are going to have to do some shuffling around so that we can both see. We'll send you across to Taylor, who is having a look at something else. The very sweet hyena cubs, I think, might just have gone to bed. It's time for little sleepy growing cubs to have a bit of a nap. So unless they come out in the next few minutes, we'll probably just leave them be and let them enjoy their morning snooze and go off in search of other things. I just wanted to say, I've seen some of those elephant slipping tracks. There's some just here on Philemon's cut line, and it's quite entertaining to imagine the elephants sort of slipping and sliding, provided they don't hurt themselves or twist an ankle joint or something. You can actually see the one where it tried to stop itself with its back toenail. There's this long slide down the hill. So obviously the weather's been a bit of a hazard for the elephants. We had that sinkhole yesterday and lots of slip tracks absolutely everywhere. No, not particularly sure of themselves and on their feet. Alright, I think let's give it a few more seconds, maybe answer one or two more questions, but I think that our little cubs have gone to bed. And that's why you need to be at these hyena dens at the crack of dawn, because that's when or at dusk, because that's when you get your best hyena cub sightings. Oh, is it me or does Ribbon look relieved? Yeah. There's definitely, without anthropomorphizing too much, there's definitely a relieved tilt to her head. Finally, some peace. It's exhausting being the mom of new hyena cubs. She's looking round-bellied and full, though. Although I don't think I have seen a hyena in 2 years that is not round-bellied and full. They seem to be doing very well for themselves. That's just her tail flicking. Lots of flies have already gathered at the entrance to this den, which is inevitable. And irritating flies. A lot of those marks on those cubs, particularly around their ears, could have been caused by these biting flies. They gather together, and it's very itchy, isn't it, Brian, when they bite you?
Yeah.
It itches like crazy for about 15 minutes, and then eventually it goes away. But the initial bite, one of them bit me through my trousers yesterday. I suppose they've got to get through hyena fur and lion fur. Makes sense they'd be able to get through clothing. Needless to say, I wasn't very impressed. Morning to Jeannie. Jeannie, you want to know if their cubs can get mange? Yes, absolutely. Hyenas. Oh, hello. Fooled. Sorry, Ribbon. No peace for you. Jeannie, yes, they can get mange. Hyenas can get mange. Essentially any mammal species out here can. The marks on these hyena cubs, though, are not mange. This is what normal little brown hyena cubs look like. Some of the marks are scars, some of them are scars from biting each other, others are just bald patches from rubbing in a den, from sleeping in the same position. It's very common to see them with those marks, and they'll eventually disappear, but it'll be, there, you see those sharp teeth? Just a glimpse of those needle points. Those of you with puppies or kittens, or have had puppies or kittens in your life before, you'll know exactly how sharp milk teeth are for these little carnivores. Now imagine that coupled with the jaw strength of a hyena. Hello. You looking at me? So today I've decided we're going to give them plenty of space. So we're just going to stay in this exact position, and then gradually, slowly but surely, we'll be able to shift so that we get a better view. But it might take us a few days. Let's let them relax. The lovely thing about hyena cubs is their natural curiosity. You can see it. I believe you can see it very clearly in the expression in their eyes. You can actually see the bright curiosity. Yes, give your mum some loving. She deserves it. I'm almost certain you are her first babies. So an exhausting experience. Don't chew on her. Don't climb on her head. I hope you're getting some amazing screenshots, because one day, in a few months from now, we're going to look back on them and go, my goodness, we cannot believe that they were once this tiny. You can see the little bald patch on the shoulder. Ravi in New York, lovely question, but difficult to answer. Which animal has the strongest bond between offspring and mother? The reason I say it's a difficult question is because the maternal instincts of all of our mammal species run very, very strong. Generally, you'll find that it is the animals that invest the longest time in pregnancy and in raising their cubs, and it's usually quite a small ratio. But that's a difficult blanket rule to apply. I would not say to you that this hyena Ribbon loves these cubs more than, or has a stronger bond with these cubs more than the Nkuhumas do with their cubs. It's very difficult to say. Elephants have very, very powerful bonds with their youngsters, bonds that last longer, generally, just because it takes longer for a baby elephant to grow up. Look at you! Obviously, reptiles and birds, it's a completely different thing. And I can say that probably the mammal species with a slightly weaker bond, no little teeth. That was a proper little hyena smile. over there. Probably the weakest bond would be antelope, just because they have to. Their offspring grow up so quickly because they have to do so in order to survive. The antelope can't spare the resources. They need to have the energy to be able to run, to be able to survive the dry season. So I would say that antelope probably have the weakest bond. Not initially. Oh. Double trouble there. Not to be cliched or anything. Brian and I are so chuffed. Are you happy, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a pangolin or an aardvark, but it is a special surprise.
Yeah.
Look how wobbly the back legs are. Hyena cubs are born with quite weak back ends. Their hips and their back legs tend to be quite wobbly for the first few weeks, until they strengthen them by wandering around the den. Yep, there we go. Chew toy. And every single plant around this den is going to fall victim to the needles of the hyena cubs. They're going to chew this, every single plant. They make for useful chew toys. Hey, you're a bit wrinkly. Mouthful of mum. Luckily, hyenas are pretty thick-skinned. We know the feeling, hey, hyenas. Shirley, you want to know... when the mother will rejoin the pack. Shirley, she hasn't left the clan, and what we'll find is, as we spend a bit more time with this at this hyena den, you'll find that they'll come and visit her, rather than the other way around. And then as the cubs go to sleep, it's time for her to go and forage. She'll reconnect with the rest of the clan. So she's not separate from them necessarily. And it's not, as we spoke about earlier, it's not uncommon to find several hyenas sharing a den site with cubs of various ages. Oh, my ear hurts in sympathy. There's some sightings that don't really need words, do they? Ow. Ow. If you were in any doubt as to where the scars come from, I think that should pretty much clear that up. Also, very useful having such stretchy skin. They look as though they've been stretched in the wash. Like somebody washed their coats a little bit too hot, and now they don't quite fit. There is one other thing that I would love to show you. I would really dream of showing you, and that's baby brown hyenas. A baby brown hyena is arguably cuter, although that's a pretty tough call to make. But I hope one day our Wild Earth travels take us somewhere where we'll be able to share that with you, because those are truly special. Michelle, you want to know how big they are when they are born? Just a couple of 100 grams, and probably roughly the size of a dwarf mongoose, just not as long, if that makes any sense. I'll show you with my hands when the cubs are being less entertaining. Obviously, they've got to be as small as possible. It's a real balance that spotted hyenas have to strike, because they've got this peculiar genitalia setup, which makes birthing them very difficult. But at the same time, they've got to be born big enough to be able to be safe in the den site and dig a little bit into the den site when they are born. One of the big things about them, of course, unlike puppies and kittens, is that they're born with those erupted teeth. Look at it chewing. Poor mom's leg. Leave her foot alone. You're horrible. Yes, kick him, Ribbon. Or her. Push it off. Don't let them get away with this. Oh, now onto Mom's tail. Our Potato, yes, potentially they do have contact with their father. Their father might be, sorry, so every now and again they do something so cute I lose my words, might be a nomadic male, but there's a good chance that it's actually one of the clan males. I'm going to throw it out there and say not Ribbon, given that she's actually a female and we've all had a case of mistaken identity. But they will have contact. If their father is a clan male, they will have contact with it. No, he doesn't play a role actively in raising the cubs, so he'll tolerate them. He has to. If he doesn't, he'll get into big trouble from Mom, who is of course bigger and more dominant. Ouch, that hurt. Sensitive skin around the foot. But he does play an important role in defending the clan's territory. But other than that, he will come and go. He'll come and visit the den site, reconnect with the other hyenas, be reminded of his place, put back into his place, and then off he'll go. Hey, Wrinkles. Oh! Collision. Every now and again they remember that we're here, and we get that curious look. And then they get distracted there, that look. That head bob look. You are full of nonsense. Whoops. You're not going to recognize the behavior of these cubs in a week's time. They're going to be running around 30 feet from the entrance to the den. They are going to develop and build their curiosity so fast. Now, Kerbo, you want to know how strong the jaw pressure is of these cubs at this age. Actually, I'm not 100% sure. I would say stronger than a human being's, and our jaw pressure is actually quite strong. Obviously, it's not nowhere near the strength of a spotted hyena. 300 psi, if I had to guess. I think already their jaws are well developed, and you can actually see it in the comparative size of their heads to the rest of their bodies. Their heads are a little bit too large, and they're sort of slightly top heavy. But you can see they've got strength to their jaws, if the indications of pain coming from the other cubs are any sign of that. I would guess I don't know exactly though, and I'm not sure. I don't know whether... Ow! Makes me want to sneeze just looking at that. I would guess that, but I honestly don't know. If any of you have access, whether there's any studies that have been done to test the bite pressure of a month-old cub, I'd be very interested to hear of it. Send it through, obviously, the normal ways, along with your questions, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or email through to questions@WildEarthTV. And perhaps Brent can give us an idea of what he thinks the bite pressure might be. I honestly don't know off the top of my head. Maybe Taylor'd like to weigh in. Oh, poor Mom just wants to sleep. Where are you going? What you doing? How brave can we be? How far can we get before we get scared and have to run home? So much for being bedtime, Brian.
Yeah.
I imagine that Ribbon's thinking much the same. Okay, while our little cub tests its boundaries, let us go and see what the wonderful Miss McCurdy's up to on her stroll through the bush. Oh, What a pity that the Nkuhumas decided to dash across our boundary, but never fear. I'm sure they will return, just like our hyenas have done. So Ribbon has moved out of the entrance to the den, and we've repositioned ever so slightly to see her, still keeping the same distance between us and them. And the cubs dashed off as soon as we switched on the vehicle, and now back again and ignoring us. So it just goes to show how quickly they habituate to the presence of our vehicles. And hyena cubs are the easiest of all of the animals to habituate because they've got that natural curiosity. And also, of course, how much it helps to have mom who is relaxed. Hey, little one, your sibling's not quite as brave. Mom, can I have some breakfast? Since my sibling is now absent, I can have you all to myself. Stunning. Really, truly stunning sighting. I could spend the entire morning here quite happily. The other one has gone into an entrance that I didn't even realize was open. So it just goes to show how much excavating they've done in the time that since they've arrived. Actually, I can see you. I think I can see the other one at the large entrance where they were earlier. Yeah, I think I see movement there. The one, so it disappeared into the hole on the left, and it's now in the hole on the right. I think it's there. Yes, there we go. It's okay, little munchkin. It's okay. We're not going to hurt you, I promise you. In a week's time, you are going to be having so much fun with us. Personally, I think when we come to visit hyena dens, once they are comfortable in our presence, I actually think we provide entertainment for the cubs. Something new and different and not so boring. You know, often mom's away, wandering off looking for food. There's only so many times you can chew on a stick or a bone before you want a new toy to play with. And I think that, honestly, the hyenas enjoy, much like baby elephants do, enjoy that interaction. Takes away a little bit of the monotony to their day. Do you agree, Brian? I think so. I really think they enjoy coming to play with us. Obviously, we try to keep our interaction to an absolute minimum, but that's impossible at a hyena den. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so relieved that we finally got them back. The sun is out, sort of. There's no more rain. Everything's green. The dams are full, and the hyenas are back. I've been hoping this morning that one of them will come and visit. Not one of the other hyenas of the clan, I mean. Perhaps Madam or Corky or... Apparently, there's a theory, I got it from Chris Rogue, who of course knows our hyenas very well, who says that she thinks that Ribbon might be the daughter of Corky, which would be interesting. Gives us a really nice family tree, actually, into the various hyenas and how they interact with each other. So we've got at least 3 family lines, 3 different genetic females. What I mean by that is mothers and daughters, sisters, and so on. Madam and Pretty, Corky and Ribbon. And I'm not sure about Scarback and Gwen. I don't know exactly where they fall into that system. Come on, little cub. Your sibling is getting all the milk. I'm going to hazard a guess. No, I'm not going to say that. I am going to say one has got a slightly bolder personality than the other. Nope. Vanished. Gone to bed. So Sheila, you want to have a sort of an explanation between when I'm saying a high and a low ranking hyena, and my apologies. Sometimes I sort of use terms without fully thinking them through, and that's a completely fair question. So hyenas have ranks within a hyena clan. You can think of it in the same way often society has a rank. So essentially what you'll get within a hyena clan is several different female families. So a mother and a daughter and so on. Mothers, daughters, sisters, and then separate females that are not closely related to them, but still part of the clan. And within that structure, you've got quite a strict hierarchy, where you've got a matriarch at the top. In the case of this particular clan, we strongly suspect it's Madam. I'm hesitant to say we know anything, but we strongly suspect it is a female called Madam. And then you'll have her, below her will be her daughters, and then below that will be the second ranking family and her daughters, and below that you'll sort of start to get the lower ranking females. And what that means is that sort of dominance is displayed particularly around kills. When there's limited access to food, the matriarch will feed first, and the high-ranking hyenas will feed first. It will express themselves in the behavior of their cubs, because cubs inherit their status from their mothers. So if you've got two sets of cubs playing, one is from a high-ranking female, one is from a low-ranking female, the high-ranking cubs will be much more aggressive and pushy. If the low-ranking female's cubs if the high-ranking cubs start to bully the low-ranking cubs and they start to squeak, if their low-ranking mother comes to protect them, she will be put in her place by the high-ranking female, the high-ranking mother. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, I know that was a bit confusing, but hopefully that's sort of clarified a little bit. So there's a very strict hierarchy. The bottom of the pile are the male hyenas. So any male hyena is submissive to any female, regardless of her rank. And it's quite brutally enforced at times. Brian and myself had I don't quite know how to describe it. I wouldn't call it an emotional sighting, but I suppose it was an emotional sighting in a way. It was a very intense sighting that we had, where Gwen was being, for whatever reason, disciplined, beaten up, bullied. You can use whatever word you want. I mean, it's part of the natural hierarchy of the clan. But Pretty and Madam were basically pulling one of her ears off, biting her. There was blood everywhere. She was desperately trying to get away from them. The sub-adults all watching, some of the high-ranking sub-adults looking like they wanted to participate, to the point that they came behind us and tried to climb underneath the vehicle. It's not the first time we've had a hyena try to climb underneath vehicles either. I know that Scott had it with the wild dogs chasing the hyenas, so they do utilize us try to utilize us as a refuge. I had to move us because it was just too dangerous to have hyenas fighting right next to us. But it is brutally enforced, and then afterwards it was really fascinating to watch her. She came and stood next to us. It was terrible. She came and stood and looked at us, stared up at us, and she was whooping, doing that contact call, obviously to sort of try and reinforce that she's a member of this clan. Please don't, really hurt her. It was constantly woo, woo, woo. It was really quite hard to watch, actually, but it did give us a really good idea as to where the different members slot in. As for this lot, well, it remains to be seen. I suspect they'll be higher ranking than Gwen, but I don't know. If she is the daughter of Corky, they'll definitely be high ranking. One of the other things I look forward to you seeing is hyena cubs whooping. Nick, you wondering about whether Ribbon is a high ranking female? I don't know, Nick. I'm not 100% sure. I would suggest she's somewhere in the middle. I don't think she's as low as Gwen. I don't think she's as high as Madam or Pretty. I would put her somewhere in between. But I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to watch the behavior of the other hyenas. The more time we spend at the den, the better an idea we'll have as to who fits in where. I suspect she's in the middle. She's also quite young. This is her first litter. Be interesting to see how she handles that. One of my favorite questions. Corey, you want to know if a lower ranking female can ever go above her station and become a matriarch? Yep, absolutely. Here's the fascinating thing. Usually in much larger clans, but it does occur, there are certain behavioral ecologists that have spent 30 years living with hyenas, and they've written some very interesting books. There's several different ones that you could actually go and read. If you do a little bit of research, you'll find them. But they've written accounts of coups within a hyena clan. So where all of a sudden the lower ranking females have outnumbered the higher ranking females and have obviously gone through a slightly better period of time. Maybe they just got luckier with food, and they will then actually rise up and there'll be a coup. Or they'll split away. So this is quite a small hyena clan. In certain areas of Africa, you can get hyena clans that have 50 hyenas, potentially even more. And there might be a split where one family of females moves away and sets up shop elsewhere and separates from the clan, at which point the most dominant female in that group will become the new matriarch. So we talk about hyenas as having this very closely controlled hierarchy system, but again, they're wild animals. They do strange things, just like our various leopards do odd and unexpected things every now and again. This cub is happy as can be. It's got mom all to itself. Siblings gone to bed, and this is just the best morning ever. I'll probably leave in the not too distant future, just so that we can give the other little cub space to come out if it wants to. I don't think it's too frightened though. I think it just wanted to go to sleep. Now, Sheila, you want to know why hyena cubs kill each other if they are the same sex. That doesn't always happen. It does occasionally happen. It's a dominance thing. And whilst the battle is decided very easily, is straight away in the beginning if it's a male or a female, because the male automatically takes a submissive role, especially with two female cubs, less so with two male cubs, but especially with two female cubs, neither wants to relinquish the dominance. So what ends up happening is with their sharp teeth, if one of them is even slightly disadvantaged, slightly smaller, the sibling can potentially kill it. There's some disagreement as to how common it actually is, and how many hyena cub deaths are actually caused by other adult females rather than cubs. But perhaps that's just a desire not to believe it of these tiny, innocent-looking things. But it doesn't always occur. So we could make an assumption that because we've got a male and a female here, or two males, and we could turn out to be completely off the mark. They might be two females. I doubt it though. Just looking at them, already it seems like there's a distinctive difference in behavior, but we'll see. Little tail flicking. Alright, hyenas. I think we're going to leave you to snooze. We'll give the other cub a chance to come out. And last question, Milkman, will they give birth yearly? Yes, potentially, but generally there's a slightly longer gap between when they have their litters of cubs. So again, it might also depend upon ranking, but we've seen Madam give birth about a year after her, or just over a year after her previous litter. But generally it will be slightly more than that, a year and a half, sometimes even 2 years before they give birth a bit late, before they give birth to their next set of cubs. So it is, and it's of course dependent upon the individual, just as it is for all mammals. Some will come into estrus sooner than others. Okay, Ribbon, well done, you clever girl. Your babies are beautiful. Thank you very much for the lovely morning. We're going to leave our little snoozing hyenas and go off in search of other things. Brent